Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another... Okay then. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video where today we'll be doing a comparison between a C1 Arlecchino and a C0 Neuvillette. Now we all know that Neuvillette is the best DPS in the game by far at C0, but I was just curious how a C1 Arlecchino would stack up against him. Now not only does our Arlecchino have her first constellation, she is also on Jadewing Spit, so she has both a 5-star weapon and her C1. Whereas our Neuvillette is on a fully F2P friendly build with Prototype Amber, and obviously he's at C0. Now one thing I should mention is that the Current Abyss does favor Pyro characters because you get a buff for triggering Pyro reactions. So kind of to make up for it, our Arlecchino's normal attack is at level 9, and her artifact stats are way worse than our Neuvillette's by comparison. So yeah, hopefully that will allow us to compare mostly the difference between a more pay-to-win Arlecchino and a more F2P friendly Neuvillette. So with that being said, we will be comparing the two in the first side of the Current Abyss. We will be playing our Arlecchino in a Monopyro team, whereas our Neuvillette will be in a regular Furina Hypercarry team. So yeah, these are the two teams we're going to be using. They will be facing off in the first half, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, and here we are in the first chamber. Now, we will be taking the EM buff, although this won't really help either of our sides. One thing we will be doing is we will be running off here to the left so that the blue guy doesn't dash. You know, as soon as you see him walking towards you and cancelling his dash animation is when you can start moving forward. But yeah, we're just going to do our little rotation here. We're going to use our kazuha burst so we can avoid a little bit of damage. And just try dodge here. Never mind, it's fine. But yeah, I think I saw 100k there, but yeah, we're hitting a lot for about 80k. We can heal using our ult. That's the main good thing about the Monopyro team, which is why we don't really need to run zhongli, because we basically always have our ult on Arlecchino. And we basically should be able to two-cycle this with no problems, and for the most part, we should have our ult up. And yeah, you can see 112k, 114k. And we managed to clear the first chamber in 42 seconds, so it's already onto the second chamber. Okay, and here we are on the second chamber. Now, honestly, I might just go for the healing effectiveness, because once again, the EM won't lead to an increase in our damage, and we might as well just go for the quality of life. One thing I probably should have mentioned earlier on in the video is that I will be doing a full Arlecchino run and then a full Neuvillette run, talking about how the two play, and then noting down any times we have and comparing them at the end of the video after both runs are concluded. But anyway, we will be ulting here once again for the heal. I will be looking to get my kazuha ult here just so that we can have the pyro swell for the cryo shield, so we don't waste any time breaking that with our Arlecchino, and then hopefully we will be able to get a big hit here. 103k, there we go. Sorry, never mind, that's 10k from xiangling's ult. But yeah, we managed to clear that once again in 40 seconds, and it's already onto chamber 3. I don't have much time to talk. Alright, and we are onto the final chamber. Now, I won't be taking the attack buff because that will unfairly favor our Arlecchino. We don't have all of our ults up right now, but that's fine because we can just E for 5 particles Q and then get another E for 5 particles, and we're all good. Now, we haven't taken more than 40 seconds. Well, yeah, we've taken around 40 seconds for both clears on the first and second chambers, so we'll probably clear in about a similar time here. We're doing, once again, big damage on our Arlecchino. I mean, C1 Arlecchino is just insane, but so is C0 Neuvillette, so I'm really curious to see how they will do against each other. Yeah, the rotations for this team are just so clean, and it's just really easy to play, which, is lovely. Honestly, both of these guys, both Neuvillette and Arlecchino, are really easy DPS to play, and I'd honestly say they're fairly F2P friendly, because, I mean, one thing about Arlecchino is she's a very versatile DPS. Neuvillette probably a bit less so, but he still has some other niche teams. Obviously, the Furina one is the best one by far, but, other teams like Hyperbloom are good. And then, there's just a lot of other variants you can play. Now, this did take us about 62 seconds. I'm sure we could have cleared it under 60 if we tried, but, it won't make much of a difference. It's just a few seconds, and yeah, it's Neuvillette's turn to see how he does now. Alright, and it is time for the Neuvillette half. Now, once again, we will be taking the EM buff, just as we did for Arlecchino. Honestly, we're not going to try group these guys up. I honestly think it's faster if we just go ahead with our rotation. Just, making sure we don't get stun locked, but since we didn't, we should be fine. Just the main strength of Neuvillette here is just that we can just line all these guys up and hit basically all three of them at the same time, so yeah, who needs grouping when you have Neuvillette's OP range? And we have almost one-cycled these guys actually, which is kind of crazy. I think if we just use a skill here, then for the most part we should be able to take them out, but I'm just going to make sure I refresh all my things and Viridescent. And yeah, we were actually able to clear in 35 seconds, which is actually faster than the Arlecchino clear by about 5 seconds. So as we can already see, a C0 F2P Neuvillette is very competitive, but it is time to move on to the second chamber. Okay, second chamber. Once again, we will be taking the healing effectiveness buff. Now, one thing I should point out is that obviously this guy has a cryo shield, so Arlecchino technically has a small advantage here, but what we can do is we can just use Furina's normal attack to get rid of the cryo shield there. There we go, and we can just carry on with our little rotation, which is lovely. We will be able to get him to probably about half HP here. We can just about get off a third charge attack. I'm going to want to make sure to use my skill here just for a little bit more battery, and yep. Alright, cool. Now we're basically just going to do the same thing, go through our rotation once again. Okay, we can gene ult here, nice. Okay, cool. So we should be able to clear here basically, and that's about 50 seconds-ish, which is just slower than the, I believe it was 40 seconds we got on our Arlecchino, but it's still a very competitive speed once again. So I think if there's one thing you can realize, it's that Neuvillette really is just him. He is one of the most powerful characters in the game, even at F2P. But yeah, with that being said, on to the final chamber, the third chamber. Alright, and it's time for the grand finale. Once again, we will be taking the healing over any other buffs. So yeah, I mean, both of our DPS here are basically unbuffed by all the Abyss Blessings we got, so this is very much a raw performance between the two. But yeah, we're just going to start up our rotation once again. I mean, we want to make sure we get these guys before the cryo shields come up, but that should be no problem for our Neuvillette, considering the fact that he's hitting about 50k on a tick. So yeah, you know, Neuvillette's damage is just immense, and this team is also very comfortable as well. Obviously, we are running a shielder here, and if anything goes wrong, we also have Jean as a healer, but that should never, you know, it should never come to that. But yeah, like I said, this team is just so comfortable and easy. Like, though I will say one good thing about Arlecchino is her team flexibility. You can run her with either shielders, but you don't have to. And I'd say it's probably similar for Neuvillette. You know, I'd say they're very much in that similar boat where, you know, C1 can help them with their team flexibility, although I'd say generally Arlecchino is probably more flexible, but I will be moving on to that when it comes to looking at the times and conclusions. But yeah, we are taking a little bit longer here than we did with Arlecchino. That may just be a bad run, but honestly, I don't see much to improve on here other than just raw damage, and we have cleared this in about 73 seconds-ish, I want to say, which is slightly slower than the 60 seconds it took us on our Arlecchino. But with that being said, it's time to compare times and move on to the conclusion of this video. Alright, and here we are at the end of the Abyss, and the results are in, as you can clearly see on your screens on the left and the right. Now, what are the results basically? As we can see, Arlecchino did take a little less time to clear the Abyss, so she was faster. However, at the same time, we've got to remember this is C1, and with a 5-star weapon, which is her second best in slot, whereas Neuvillette is on a completely F2P friendly build. So end of the day, I mean, sure, Arlecchino might have done better, but it's not much better than our Neuvillette, if I'm being honest. So, you know, I think this just goes to show how incredibly busted Neuvillette is. So if you want one DPS to destroy the entirety of the game's content for you, then there's your answer. One thing I will say though, however, is that Arlecchino's teams may be considered maybe not more F2P friendly, but more flexible. I mean, for Neuvillette, you can run him in, like, obviously the Furina Hyper Carry team is his best team. You can run him in some other teams, like, you can run kazuha, Fischl, and Zhongli with him, for example. That's a very good comfort team. Or you can do, like, a Hyper Boon team that also works. There are some vape variants, although they can get a bit complex. Whereas Arlecchino just has a lot of team archetypes you can work in. The Mono Pyro we played, you can play her in just a double Hydro team, you can play her in an Overvape team or in an Overload team. You know, there's just a lot of teams you can play Arlecchino in. I'd say she's probably more flexible than Neuvillette. Although one thing we should mention also is that obviously Arlecchino's team flexibility can depend a bit on having C1. Actually, this goes for both Neuvillette and Arlecchino. C1 can help you with not having to run a shielder sometimes, but I think for Arlecchino you don't really need a shielder as much as you do for Neuvillette. Although even for Neuvillette you don't need a shielder. I have used the team of Fischl, Jean, and Zhongli before, However, I think you just find more consistent results with Neuvillette with a shielder. And honestly, for Neuvillette, a shielder isn't as much of a damage loss as it is for Arlecchino. So that's what I will say. Overall, obviously C1 Arlecchino is just slightly the winner of today's video. Although Neuvillette did clear the first chamber faster because that was most suited for his playstyle. But I'd say Neuvillette is probably a more well-rounded unit. And it's C0, obviously. And C1, he would be more powerful. But yeah, that's basically it for the results. So yeah, take from that what you will. If you have a C1 Arlecchino, be very happy because she is basically stronger than any C0 at the game, I'd say. But, you know, Neuvillette's just incredibly powerful himself. Like, it's actually crazy how much he can compete and how much he can honestly just carry you through an abyss. Like, if you have Neuvillette and then any of, like, Arlecchino, Hu Tao, Alhaitham, there should not be a single abyss which you can't clear, if I'm being entirely honest. Now, we can just quickly go through the teams. So, you know, I kind of already showed off our Arlecchino build. Honestly, her artifacts are absolutely horrendous, but I did just want to force her on her own set just for the sake of this video. And then, like we already said, C1, talent's not fully leveled up. Similar thing for Neuvillette, but his charge attack is fully leveled up, and that's the main point in his teams. You know, C0, Mars to say, as you would think, Prototype Amber with basically 78 courage to 230 crit damage. You know, Zhongli is just on a pure shield bot build. You know, he isn't actually giving our Neuvillette that many buffs from Millilith. Kazuha is on over 800 EM, which is useful for our Arlecchino. He is on, I don't remember if he was in Saxhold for this video, but yeah, Viridescent just, you know, I don't have to explain Kazuha to you guys, you already know. Furina, C0, Golden Troop, on Fav just for a little bit extra battery because it can be useful sometimes on over 200 ER with 64 crit, 183 crit damage. Then, yeah, Jean, just over 200 ER, just to make sure she can ult on cooldown. Nothing major on her. Viridescent will sometimes come in handy, but it's not for very long. When it comes to our xiangling, 50, which goes up to 62 crit, 117 crit damage, 250 ER, just to make sure we always have her ult. Might be a bit overkill on the ER, but, you know, better comfortable. C6, which gives us extra power damage. Bennett does have a C1, which is obviously the biggest part. Noblesse for extra attack. Level 10 ult. Sapwood Blade for high base attack and ER, and over 250 ER on him as well, which honestly is very unnecessary in this Arlecchino team, but, you know, no reason really to change the build. But, yeah, that's it for today's video. As you guys can see, both Arlecchino and Neuvillette are very strong, but if you were to ask me, Neuvillette just about edges it out at C0, but when it comes to C1, indeed, Arlecchino will be a little bit stronger than your Neuvillette. But yeah, hopefully this video was interesting for you guys. Maybe it helped some of you guys figure out who to pull. But yeah, that's it for me today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.